In the monologue, I pointed out that there seems to be a disconnect between the way the Democrats are campaigning and what is taking place with the unemployment rate. They are still using really scary language when talking to minority audiences about if Donald Trump gets reelected, there's going to be segregation or we're going to be putting people in cages or whatever it is. But the unemployment rate for minority workers has come down to historic lows, and I don't see Democrats speaking to that. They're using, as you said, they're not using competency words. They are downplaying achievement. They aren't speaking about prosperity and wealth and private property. They're still making promises of gifts from the Treasury or largesse or the next great program. Why is it Democrats cannot speak to minority voters about the economy as it is right now?
Well, so there's a couple things, Andrew. First of all, when you're selling something and you're selling a product that's not the best, not the winning product, then you tend to speak in that past tense type of thing because you have to keep your buyer wherever your product gives them the best opportunity, right? So in an economy that's booming where Black unemployment is at record lows, like lows we haven't seen in 70 years, when more Blacks are employed than ever before, and when Blacks actually have an opportunity to make up for the losses in home ownership and wealth attainment that were their experience during the Obama administration, you have to keep the language centered in on what you're selling. And the Democrats are selling demagoguery, victimhood, and really, like, how can they compare to the Trump economy? And I understand that there's certain people out there who hate Donald Trump, but numbers don't lie. The Trump economy is benefiting African Americans, Blacks. I call myself Black, so immigrants who are Black, native-born Blacks. Any person who's in America, illegal aliens are benefiting from this economy. So if you're a Democrat, you have to say to Blacks, wait, don't look at your bank account balance. Don't look at your investments. You're still a victim. We still have something to sell you. You need reparations, which honestly, this is the worst time in America to try to sell reparations to any group because instead of waiting on the government to give you what, 5 grand, which you may or may not even be truly entitled to, you could just get out there and invest your money or start a business or just go work, have more than one job and get your hands on 5 grand much more quickly that you actually have control over and can spend at will. So it's just funny to me that they're still peddling that stuff, but they don't have any winning policies, Andrew.
Well, I think there's a fear in the Democrat Party, and of course they're not going to convey it to me, that, they've already lost the Midwest, they've lost the South, they've lost the white working class. What if they lose minority voters to Republicans? I mean, and I've been saying for a long time, I think the polling data is off. I think Donald Trump is going to get more of a share of the Black and the Hispanic vote and even the Asian vote that any of the polls are going to reflect because, Bill Clinton taught us all a valuable lesson in the 90s. It's the economy, stupid. So the media, the professional left and the academics who make all they want out of Trump's tweets. They could talk about kids in cages till they're blue in the face. We know that started under Obama. But at the end of the day, the old question, it remains, are you better off? And if you are, and millions of people are better off, whether they got a job, a pay raise, a bonus, or all three, it is hard for Democrats to message against that. And it's almost as if they're not even trying. They're really just trying to scare people.
So I saw a little meme today, and I went through and double checked a couple of the stats on it, but I wanted to share it with you because I knew I was coming on and I just thought it was so perfect for this conversation. And that is the deflection that you're talking about, Andrew. So what do you talk about if you're trying to sell something and it's not sitting well with voters? And we all know that illegal immigration, regardless of what Democrats say on their media outlets, illegal immigration is not popular with Americans. Americans are very kind-hearted. They're not really for mass deportation, but they're also not for continuing to leave the border wide open. And that's the policy that the Democrats are currently peddling. So if you look at the numbers, so you have 2.7 million kids in America who have a parent in prison, right? You have 400,000, maybe 500,000, the number fluctuates. 500,000 kids are in foster care in America. That means they live with people that aren't their parents or relatives. And then you have 765,000 kids in America who are separated from their parents because their parents are serving on active duty in our armed forces. And you have around 2,000 children in our country who are separated from their parents because their parents or someone acting as their parent brought them to the country illegally. So who are the Democrats focused on? The Democrats are focused on those 2,000 kids who are separated from their parents and not the thousands of kids who are gone and their parents are separated from them because they've been killed by illegal aliens. And so this illustrates perfectly who the Democrats are focused on: illegals, refugees, criminals, people who really, honestly, God bless them, but they're not voting constituents. And my hope is that the numbers that I'm seeing on the polls, a new poll out shows that the president is up 8% with Black voters, and Rasmussen has him up even higher than that. So, these numbers are trending in the right direction for the president. And I hope those numbers are factual and that they translate into actual voting patterns in 2020, because the president has an agenda that benefits Black people, not because they're Black, but because they're alive in America today and they can partake of this economy and it's newfound freedom that he's actually spreading around here.
All right, so let me go back to that very first thing that we talked about with these studies from Princeton and Yale. So here you have a situation where we're talking about the economy. We are, yes, breaking it down for different demographic groups, but in the end, we're talking about the economy. We're talking about lowering taxes, rolling back regulations, creating jobs for people, all people. But it still seems the Democrats, their only obsession is either kids in cages or Black churches are going to burn. They are trying to scare people on race. They say Donald Trump's a racist daily. If you mention a country that is not exactly a wonderful place to be and you point that out, you're a racist. If you're not for the Green New Deal, you're a racist. If you're not for free tuition or whatever it is that's democratic socialism, you're a racist. But again, when you look at the way Republicans, the way conservatives talk about economics, the way they present to any audience, whether it's at a candidate forum or when you and I go to CPAC, it's the same language. And now we're seeing the results. People could read them for themselves. They're turning off CNN. They're turning off MSNBC. The Democrats shrieking that, we're all going to be dead in the streets and illiterate if we don't vote for democratic socialists. I don't think that message is resonating anymore.
So I think one thing that happens to us, Andrew, is like for you and me, we're like at the tip of the spear in media where we're all constantly on Twitter and interacting with people who are, a lot of them are just activists and they spend all of their time online arguing for losing causes. And so that tends to skew what we believe is happening at any given spot. It skews it for us and makes it so that we're kind of like, we're not really in touch with what Americans are really feeling and thinking on issues. But when you talk about what the Democrats are doing with their messaging, they're way off of where they should be, because they have to win the undecideds and kind of independent-minded voters, the ones that President Trump won in some places by very narrow margins, but he still won them. These are people that aren't so much politically affiliated as they are looking for what you're offering them during the campaign season. And the Democrats are offering a lot of, again, the reparations conversation, it's a no-go, Andrew. And I have to stress this, let me just say this one more time for posterity's sake. The Democrats have numerous times in the past 20 years had control of all three parts of government, and at no point have they ever offered Black people reparations. It's a no-go. They don't even want to give Black people reparations. The only reason it's a conversation is because it's more beneficial for them to talk about the pie-in-the-sky reparations than it is to talk about, I don't know, how they're going to fix the economy, how they're going to change healthcare for the positive, how they're going to lower the number of Americans who are dying from opioid overdoses. I mean, take any issue that Americans are talking about at their kitchen tables, things that impact people on the day-to-day regular, and Democrats don't have a solution for it. Their $15 an hour thing, even Bernie Sanders can't make that work on his campaign. So there is no solution that they're offering to Americans. And I wish they did have a couple of solutions, because our system works best with two viable political parties. But right now we only have one. And Donald Trump's running that one, and it's working great. And then you have the Democrats, where they're fighting each other. They have a progressive wing that's actually off into almost communism, Marxism for sure. And it's sad to see, but I'm glad to see it, because I don't want them winning in 2020. I don't want them to have any parts of control over anything that me and my husband and our kids, your kids, you and your wife, any people that I care about and love, which is all Americans, I don't want them to have any control over us. They're bad in leadership, and they don't love us all. They just love the ones of us who might give them power.